Hello my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. So guys, we're looking at a counter, and this is out of nationalpriorities.org. Total cost of war since 2001. Look at that go. That's a big number. Is that not a big number? Every hour, taxpayers in the United States are paying $32.08 million. Every hour. For total cost of war since 2001. $32.08 million every single hour. So look at that number. 4,768,000,000,000 and counting. Is that not incredible? Can you imagine? That's such a vast sum of money. It's incredible for us to really comprehend it. So basically, that's all debt that every U.S. citizen is basically going to have to account for. That's how this works. And so we have Russia sending troops to Venezuela, a move Pompeo says increases tensions. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has told his Russian foreign minister that Russia's dispatch of military personnel to Venezuela is increasing tensions there. U.S. State Department spokesman Robert Palladino says Pompeo called Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Monday and said the United States and regional countries will not stand idly by while Russia takes steps to support its ally, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Pompeo's call came after a Venezuelan official said Russian aircraft arrived in Caracas this weekend as part of the ongoing military cooperation. Reports that 2 Russian Air Force planes arrived could not be independently confirmed. The U.S. and dozens of other countries support Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido, who says Maduro's re-election last year was rigged. Maduro alleges the U.S. and Guaido are plotting a coup. And so, who ever even heard of Juan Guaido before all this started to happen? And, what's this really all about? You guys know, you guys understand what's going on here. Again, it's all about money. It's all about natural resources. It's all about assets. And Russia on military planes in Venezuela, our specialists are there based on a cooperation treaty, which, they did sign. And so Russian specialists are there as part of a 2001 military technical cooperation deal with Caracas that doesn't need further approval, Moscow said after reports of the arrival of 2 military planes with troops and cargo. Russia develops its relations with Venezuela in strict accordance with the constitution of this country and in full respect of its legislation. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova had said, the existing deal was ratified by both Russia and Venezuela, and it doesn't require any additional approval from the National Assembly of Venezuela, she pointed out. So this is perhaps an escalation. So following reports that the 2 Russian military planes carried about 100 troops and cargo landed outside Caracas on Saturday, the Organization of American States labeled it a harmful act to Venezuelan sovereignty, while the U.S. State Department insisted it was a reckless escalation of the situation in the country. And U.S. Security Advisor, one of the strongest backers of regime change in Venezuela, John Bolton, was also outraged, writing on Twitter that the U.S. will not tolerate hostile foreign military powers meddling with the Western Hemisphere's shared goals of democracy, security, and the rule of law. Washington had recognized opposition leader Juan Guaido as the legitimate president of Venezuela, even molded the so-called humanitarian intervention in order to remove the unwanted government of Nicolas Maduro from power. Zakharova responded to Bolton by saying that his words prove the U.S. still considers Latin America an area of its exclusive interests, its own backyard, and demands unquestionable obedience from it, just like it was in the colonial times, under the infamous Monroe Doctrine. And so if the Americans deny other countries access to the Western Hemisphere, it begs the question, what are they themselves doing in the Eastern Hemisphere, she wondered. Referring to the heavy U.S. military presence in Europe and its involvement in color revolutions, quote-unquote, in former Soviet states and the Balkans. Perhaps they believe that people of this part of the world will be thankful when Washington willfully changes their leaders and kills the unwanted ones. Or the U.S. still believes that people are waiting for the Americans to bring democracy to them on the wings of their bombers. Ask the Iraqis, the Libyans, or the Serbs about it. As we see over here, the infamous notebook. So, very interesting. We had President Trump basically talking about Brazil becoming a part of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And Brazil isn't ready for Trump's invitation to NATO. Latin America's biggest nation would be a vital major ally, but membership is out of the question. Interesting how things are changing as Trump and Bolsonaro appear to have a tight relationship there. And yet Brazil is the B in BRICS, or was the B in BRICS. And then Turkey, of course, was a NATO member, but is now apparently allied with China, Russia, Iran. And very interesting, and as this says, at a predictably strange press conference with the president of Brazil, Bolsonaro, President Trump threw out the idea of making the huge South American nation a member of NATO. Or did he? Interesting. Very, very interesting. Watching all these maneuvers and manipulations. And so Vice President Pence is going to meet with Venezuelan leader Guaido's wife. This is out of the Miami Herald. So they're calling him the leader. And, again, the puppet, really. And we know that. That's the case. Not that Chavez was a good guy, not that Maduro's a good guy. It's not about that. It's really just all about the corporations and what the corporations want. And that's really it. It's just controlling the profits, controlling the oil, controlling the gold, controlling the natural resources. And that is really what it's all about. And you know what? We could see right through it. Everybody could see right through it. And, I've been watching Florida Marquis on this, and he's, one of all of our favorites, or most of us, anyway, for just laying it out there and saying it like it is, really. And, it gets back to that ticker that we were watching. And, the profits, it's always about profits. And this is saying Brazil is not considering military force in Venezuela, but we'll see. We'll see, because the rumors have been that they were going to be going in, as well as Colombia. And we obviously see there's strong alliances apparently being forged between the new Brazilian government with Bolsonaro at the helm, and the U.S. and Colombia. So how big is this really? Well, it definitely complicates things if there was to be any sort of intervention, because now you have to worry about killing Russian soldiers. So, that presents an issue, and we've run into this issue in Syria. And, Syria is not over yet. It's not over yet. Over here, horror, fear, despair. Venezuela's oil capital shattered by tsunami of violent looting. And, of course, all this is part of what's going on, which is all about getting the regime change and getting in there a government that's going to be friendly to, the corporate will. And new blackout hits swaths of Venezuela, including Caracas. And, again, who always suffers? It's the civilians. It's always the civilians of the world that suffer in these things. And there was a movie I just watched recently, and it was about Robert the Bruce. If you guys remember Braveheart, Braveheart ends up William Wallace ends up getting basically killed, drawn and quartered. And, Robert the Bruce ends up going ahead and trying to get the English back out of Scotland. And in the end, at least in the movie, he has a chance to actually kill Edward II. And he doesn't do it. Even though Edward II killed like 3 of his brothers and, countless people he loved, he didn't do it. And so, you could look at it like he took the higher road, or you could look at it as if this is very, very similar again to all the Anunnaki legends and the theories that kingship comes from on high. The kings, the royal bloodlines, these royal bloodlines, the peasants, the populace, the humans, the Homo sapiens sapiens, they're expendable. The blue bloods, that's different. So they would often, pardon each other, and, in cases of, uprisings and stuff, exile each other. Meanwhile, the average people were the ones that were at the front in the wars, killing each other for their rich masters. And nothing has really changed when you get down to it. It's still the same old stuff. It's just changed. The kings and queens are now CEOs of corporations and COOs. Your CEOs and your COOs are your kings and queens, basically, and the families that are behind all these corporations. Nothing has really changed when we look at it. We're still in a feudal society. And just like we were talking about pulling out of Iraq, pulling out. We're pulling out now. It's, it's done. We're pulling out. We're pulling out of Syria. We're going to pull out of everywhere. But somehow we never do. It's just like that. It's just like the deficit. We're going to get somebody in there that knows business, and it's going to straighten things out financially, and we're going to have a balanced sheet. Our books are going to balance out perfectly. No more big debt. We're going to straighten the situation out, and yet the debt is higher than ever. The biggest deficit in history. Nothing ever changes. We just keep buying the BS that they keep selling us, but nothing ever changes. The wars go on eternally, and the ones getting killed are our kids, our family members. Nothing ever changes. Nothing. As we see this U.S. military buildup in Iraq via Israel and Jordan, ready for clash with pro-Iranian Iraqi militias. And we go back to PNAC, Project for a New American Century. Syria and Iran are still on the table. They haven't been taken care of. The neocons started all this, and believe me, the forces that are behind them still have unfinished agendas going on. The Israeli Air Force bombs 3 symbols of Hamas rule in Gaza. That's something that never ends, and that's another bunch of very, very poor people that you could really feel for. The Palestinians. War is a bad investment. And this is out of splinternews.com. And it does. And it's talking about how much money it costs. Brown University's cost of war project's been trying to measure what the country has spent in its wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, dozens of other countries, over the past 2 decades. And it's a huge number, right? And it creates shockingly fewer jobs that if you spent on other ventures like education, clean energy. In a new study, researchers found that based on the data from fiscal years 2001 to 2019, the country has spent around $260 billion per year for the forever war. Staggering sum that could have transformed the country if applied elsewhere. Can you imagine the infrastructure? Can you imagine all the good things we could have done with it? Eliminating poverty, all these things, but that's not the real agenda. That's not the real agenda at all. And, the war is a bad investment when it comes to the average person, but it's not a bad investment when you're talking about the global military industrial complex and the pharmaceutical industry and all the things that tie into it. All the things. You know, the people that are damaged psychologically from warfare. All the drugs they have to take for physical and mental issues. It's actually very profitable for some. And so we need to look at who is making the money on that, because then you'll find out who's really pulling the strings. So my friends, as always, thumbs up, support the channel. Please do like, share, subscribe, click the bell for all notifications. This is going up on the backup channel, Evolutionary Energy Arts 2, so please do join that. And also join the first one, Evolutionary Energy Arts, as well, to get all the updates and share as we try to wake up the world so we could shed the shackles that we have been basically locked up in on, you know, this planet of never-ending war. And it goes so far back, and we will cover all that as well. So my friends, God bless, stay safe, and namaste.